G'day everyone, this is Health Highlights. Health Highlights is a show about health, health professionals and the people and the stories behind the names that we hear about but we seldom get to meet. Now in the Hunter, 50% of people do not get enough fruit in their diet and 91% don't get enough vegetables. And then we have an epidemic of 60% of the people are actually overweight. So those statistics are really damning for our community and we need to turn that around, particularly for our children. So who better to talk about healthy lifestyle and how we can turn that around than international speaker Cindy O'Meara. How are you, Cindy?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very well, Simon.
So can you firstly tell us, why is nutrition so important for our bodies?
Oh, that is a big topic.
It is.
It's a very big topic. But number one, and we did address this last week, is Nutrigenomics. That it is the food that we eat not only feeds the microbiome, which is all of those gut bacteria that we have, and if they're being fed, then they produce metabolites, and they then affect our genetic potential by either upregulating or downregulating. Then the food that we consume that we absorb is Nutrigenomics, which is also affecting our DNA, upregulating and downregulating. And then there's the whole epigenetics. But those two things, if you are not eating those vegetables, which give the fiber to those bugs, and you're not eating concentrated foods that we see that our ancestors ate, then you're not feeding the body and you're not going to be well.
Can you explain what upregulating and downregulating for those who don't understand what that means?
Yeah, so our DNA produces proteins, our genes produce proteins, and these proteins report signals to the body, or they might make things, whatever it is. So let's just say that, I won't pick one, but let's just say that you have genetic potential for something, and if you are down-regulating, and when it needs to be up-regulated because of the food that you're consuming, then you may get that disease, and that disease may be breast cancer, or because we've identified that there are genes for breast cancer, bowel cancer, diabetes, metabolic disease. So whatever the body needs to do, whether it's upregulate or downregulate, it innately knows what to do given the right resources. And that's the metabolites from those bacteria, as long as those bacteria are not toxic to us, or those metabolites are toxic to us, so there's a nice balance, as well as the food, and as long as that food is not toxic to us.
And so that's why the nutrients are so important, because that ensures that the body is doing the correct thing. And if we're getting the wrong nutrients, or it's not the form that it should be, what's happening is you're getting disease. Is that what you're saying right there?
That's it. You said that beautifully, succinctly.
And one of the things I love is that there's over 1 trillion cells in our body, and we have a completely new cellular makeup every single year. So you can have a new you in 1 year if you look after yourself and eat. I mean, it's not quite as easy as that, but as a basic rule, I mean, that's the way the body works, isn't it?
Yeah, and in actual fact, apoptosis and autophagy is happening all the time. So you are changing, every second you are changing. And if you give it the right nutrition, I have seen people change in 3 weeks if they give it the right nutrition.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And so you're saying that when people do have good nutrition, from your experience, that people are actually turning their health journeys around and getting over a lot of diseases. Can you just list off a few of those that you've seen?
Well, wow. Multiple sclerosis I've seen, and I've interviewed 3 people that have, actually 4 people. One was Terry Walls, who is a medical doctor who has helped herself by using food in order to manage her multiple sclerosis, and the 3 were people that followed her. Wow. So they've all turned their management around. They're no longer in wheelchairs. They don't have the signs and symptoms. Of course, MS can flare up at any time, but they're managing it, and that's what I love to see. I've seen people with anxiety and depression, so that has turned around. Autism, I've seen that turn around with food. Autoimmune diseases, and there's over 100 autoimmune diseases, MS being one of them. And I've also seen dementia and Alzheimer's change with nutrition.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And I do know there's some science around that too.
That's great. And look, I have heard you talk a little bit about cholesterol.
Yes.
And
yes. Heart disease.
And heart disease. And I'd be interested for you maybe share a little bit of your thoughts around cholesterol and heart disease and the prevalence of that, and and maybe where we've got it wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think we got it wrong because we blamed cholesterol. But to me, that's like blaming the police and the firemen for being in an accident. So the cholesterol's there to dampen the inflammation, that's the damage that's done to, let's say, the arterial wall. And we all believe that the blood tube was something that just got clogged up by the cholesterol. And it was a belief system that was passed on, and then, statin drugs were made and that reduced the cholesterol. And then we got into this thing where you just need to take these statin drugs to reduce your cholesterol, eat margarine and you'll be fine. But the cardiologists that were, operating on their patients noticed that between 40 and 60% of the people they were operating on didn't have high cholesterol. So it couldn't be cholesterol that's the issue.
Right.
Yeah, and the whole thing where we took eggs away, well, that was just the silliest thing of all, because that yolk produces a chicken. Why would you take a beautiful yolk away from our dietary requirements just because of the cholesterol? So there's a real revolution happening, and I think that revolution's been happening a long time. It's just that there are some people that are just catching up with that, and there are some of our health professionals that haven't caught up yet as to what's happening, and that topic is huge. And
it's a big one.
It is it's a big topic, and just so people know.
So for you, margarine, butter, just
butter.
Absolutely. So you're going the whole food, the natural way it's produced, and all those things. And would you say that across the board in terms of food?
Definitely. If it's made by man in any way or manipulated in any way by man in a chemical laboratory, I'm not talking about cooking.
Yep.
I'm talking about chemical manipulation. Then I would stay right away from it. And the history of margarine, we could go on for half an hour about the history of margarine and how it's morphed its way through all the problems it's really had.
Yes.
And that morphing, in 2009, when we realised that, we didn't, we've known since 1978, but when the public realised that margarine had trans fats in it, and they were one of the worst fats because they were made by man and caused more heart disease than any other fat that they'd ever seen. That, like I said, it's a big topic, and the Heart Foundation, to me, has got it all wrong. And people are probably going, yeah, and what do you know? And the Heart Foundation doesn't. But you just have to look who's with the Heart Foundation and who's supporting them. And I've seen a slow change in them, and I'm hoping I actually see vegetable oil start being taken out of their recommendations.
Yeah, that's great. Another big topic, and I know you could talk about this one for a long time, is gut health.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about that and how to have good gut health and what to do. What's your opinion on gut health and how to have good gut health?
Yeah. If you asked me this in the 80s, I would say it's easy. Get off the SAD diet, Standard Australian Diet, and let's just get on a real food diet. But what I see happening now, and I think about 70 to 80% of people that will work, but sometimes you put that other 20% on a really good diet, get off the SAD diet, get on a real diet, and you make them worse, or they can't handle it. Because they become so intolerant to food because their bacteria in their gut isn't working. The gates of the epithelial lining are open. They're getting all these food particles going into the blood system. It's flaring things up. They've got inflammation, and we have to do extraordinary things in order to get them well. And so to me, gut health isn't as simple as what I believe it was in the 80s.
Yep.
And that's because of generational problems that we've had. The microbiome being destroyed not only by antibiotics and food, but by chemicals in our agriculture, and especially glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup. And we're going to talk about that one when we talk about genetically modified foods. But basically, I think we are in a time where we're going to have to wake up. Because that wake-up call we're now seeing with kids with autism, allergies, food sensitivities and asthma. And that is perpetuated by not only the microbiome, but the toxins in our environment. Yeah.
Very good, very good. So, you alluded to that. Genetically modified foods. Yeah. Another big topic. Another thing that is really taking over. It's convenient. There's lots of things in so many foods now genetically modified. What's your opinions on that?
Stay away from them. And my big reason, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing, I say go to Jeffrey Smith for that. He's got a book called, I can't even remember the name of the book, I read it so long ago, Seeds of Deception. Brilliant book. Go and read that about genetically modified foods. Let's just talk about the chemical that is sprayed on it. So they're all Roundup Ready canola, Roundup Ready soya, Roundup Ready everything. So Roundup active ingredient is glyphosate, which I alluded to before. Glyphosate started its life in the 60s as a chelating agent, so it takes minerals out of us. It then became a herbicide, so it stops something called the shikimate pathway, which produces in plants and bacteria tyrosine, tryptophan, and phenylalanine, neurotransmitters for our body.
Yeah, right.
If we don't have them, we're not making our neurotransmitters. It also makes folic acid. I find it very unusual that in 2009 that folic acid became something that was mandatorily put into breads and flours. It stops coenzyme Q10, the production of coenzyme Q10, and it also stops enterobactin, which is an iron carrier. So all of and by the way, it stops in the soils the bacteria growing and the ecology of the soil, which means the minerals in the soil are not being pulled up by the plants. So you're eating foods that are no minerals, no amino acids or 3 essential amino acids, no coenzyme Q10, no folic acid, and you're wondering why we're sick. And these are not only sprayed on our genetically modified foods, but this glyphosate is actually sprayed on wheat just a couple of weeks before harvest, non-genetically modified canola seeds just before harvest. So we're consuming these foods every single meal, snack. We are breathing this in, eating this, and we're wondering why we have a problem. So let's just forget about the GM and let's just go to that chemical. Plus, our councils are spraying it on our verges, our playgrounds, and our sports grounds. So you wonder why we've got a gut issue.
It's amazing. Yes. So what do we do? So, okay, you got mum out there worried about her kids. And you've told us all this stuff about Roundup and all that sort of stuff. So what do the average person do about that?
Well, number one, if you want to become an activist, start lobbying your council to stop doing it. Number one. Number two, start producing foods in your backyard. Lettuce leaves and tomatoes, they're easy, and herbs, they're like wild. It's like wild stuff. So that's what I would do. Find your farmers markets and talk to your farmers. Find out if they're spraying that around or near their foods. Buy from your farmers market. Start getting back into the kitchen to feed and nourish your family in order to heal this nation. And I think we have to step up as individuals because our government isn't going to do it and our council isn't going to do it. So it is about us becoming activists as mothers, and I think mothers are the saviors of the world, because you know what happens is they get a little precious bundle and they realize that that's their whole life and they want to protect that bundle. And it's not until they realize that that beautiful baby is sick because of what is happening out there that they become activists in their own home.
Yes.
And you can, you get into that kitchen, feed and nourish your babies and your children to heal this nation.
So good, so good. And mothers do that, but that's why we're doing this, because we want everyone to get understand that, hey, it's not just when you got a baby, it's your whole life.
Yeah.
Before you even have the baby, you want to be healthy and well, so that baby starts in a great way. So final question,
yes,
big one as well. I've given you all the big questions, Cindy, but I knew you were up for it. Organic versus non-organic food. I sort of know some of the things that you're doing, but can you sort of give us a little bit of an idea of what your thoughts are around that?
Hey, if you want to avoid these chemicals, you have to go organic or chemical free or grow your own. Yep. That's it.
Simple as that.
It's as simple as that. And I know that the Australian the Environmental Working Group have the clean 15, the dirty 8. But I'm sorry, I try my best to do everything as organic as I can. And for those times I don't, that's okay. I can go out to dinner and not be paranoid about it, because for the most part, but if we choose this, then we are actually activists saying, we're not prepared to eat this anymore. We're not prepared to buy those foods anymore. So you better change your practices. And I'm hoping that we're going to see a revolution. A bit like after the Second World War, where they had the victory gardens, where everybody had to have a vegetable garden in their back yard in order to feed the troops and to feed America and Australia. We need to have these gardens back in. We need to go back to those ways, and that's the only way we're going to start to change things.
Great, so good. So finally, can you give us, mums out there, dads out there, 3 things that they can take away and actually start implementing in their world right now, because it is a long journey and there's so much and it can be overwhelming for us all. What would you say is 3 maybe inexpensive or 3 simple ways to start on the journey of getting your family in better health?
First thing I would do is I'd go to the pantry and I'd have a look at all your foods in your pantry and read the ingredients and decide, are you prepared to continue to eat those foods? Eliminate the things that you can get rid of without it costing you too much money. And look at one food and go, how can I make this better? So let's just take salt. It's cheap. Get rid of the white salt and buy yourself some good quality sea or Himalayan salt. Put some dulse in it so you're iodized it, and you've got DHA as well as iron and all sorts of things. That's a good start, is the salt. Let's just say that. Then I would actually go around your house into probably your bathroom and have a look at the chemicals that you put on your skin every single day of your life, and start to do the same thing there. Declutter what you don't need, get rid of what you don't need, and dispose of it, environmentally. And then start to look at, well, what are the ingredients I'm prepared to put on my hair, my face, and my skin?
Very good.
Then I would probably go into my laundry and my kitchen cupboard and do the same thing. So let's say it takes you to declutter that 3 or 4 months, 5 months. You're doing a really good thing. So that would be where I'd be going. I'd be doing it step by step, habit by habit. And I have to plug my book.
Please go right ahead.
It's 20 years old, but I just did an update of it. So I've had 4 updates, and it's called Changing Habits, Changing Lives. And that's what it is. It says it starts with breakfast cereals, and we talk about it and what's our alternative. Give recipes and everything. So then the next thing is maybe salt, and then the next thing is sugar, and then the next thing is chocolate and dairy and wheat. And so it's a step-by-step process by way people can make these changes. And then we get into the bathrooms and
brilliant. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, that is some fantastic information, and hopefully you've taken a lot away from that, and you've got some to-dos to get out there and actually to make a few changes to make your family and your environment a healthier one. Cindy, thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing for us and for our community. We honour you, and it has been wonderful to have you on the show. All the best with everything you're doing, and I look forward to seeing your series come out. That'll be amazing sometime. I'll be watching.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for joining us. If you want to know more about Cindy or her book or her series or her business, all the information will be on the screen for you right now. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a fabulous week. We'll have an incredible interview for you next week. Remember, same time, 12:30 on Wednesday. Healing is a gift, health a responsibility. See you later.